My name is John Verboncoeur. I'm the Associate Dean for Research and Graduate Studies in the College of Engineering at Michigan State University. And then in my role there, I oversee the research in the college, and a key piece of that research is in mobility. And in terms of mobility, the Canvas project is one of our prime examples of mobility research. This Canvas stands for Connected Autonomous Networked Vehicles for Active Safety. And so I think that sort of describes the fundamental purposes of that vehicle. So this is a live feed from the Canvas vehicle behind me, and it's a feed from the Lidar here on the stanchion on top of the vehicle. And so this is a live Lidar feed, and you're actually seeing in real time the Lidar. So if we cue someone walking through, we will see the person actually moving live. And so as his arms wave, you can see that picked up by the Lidar. I can explain very simply how Lidar works. You can think of it, everybody's familiar with the laser pointer. If you point a laser pointer at something, you get a little red or green dot on the screen. If you move that laser pointer around, it moves around. Lidar works on a similar principle. Think of these systems on top of the car as having a series of laser pointers. They actually have several rows of laser pointers. And these pointers basically bounce laser light off of objects in the environment around them. The light bounces back. It's a very specific frequency. The time of flight of that bounce tells you the distance to the object, so it measures how long it takes for the light to bounce back, and it also measures the intensity of the reflection. And so the intensity of the reflection is shown in the color map here. So things that have a more intense reflection have a deeper color, and things that have a less intense reflection have a lighter color. And so those intense reflections coming back tell you where objects are located, and then it builds this by spinning around and basically imagine taking a laser pointer and pointing it at all different directions and measuring the reflections back in every direction, and doing that also in the vertical dimension. And that gives you a map of where an object sits, and it can outline the shape of objects. And so that's what you can see here is the shape of people and so forth. And you can see that the LiDARs have not an infinite resolution, so they don't measure every single point. They may go an inch, bands of an inch or so. And so you can see that reflected in the image built by this. So why is this important? So when an autonomous vehicle is operating in an environment, it may have a very precise map of that environment, but it has to be able to locate itself within that environment. And it may not have a very precise map of an environment, or there may be unexpected objects in the environment, whether those are other vehicles, it may be, things have been dropped in the road. For example, something fell off of a truck and is sitting in the road. So being able to map objects dynamically is crucial to maintaining safe operation of the vehicle, because it has to be able to see and perceive what's around it in the environment to avoid obstacles, to maintain safety. For example, pedestrians, you can see the people mapped around here, but also other objects that may cause harm to the vehicle. In terms of how one might trust an autonomous vehicle, there's certainly an evolutionary thing going on here, right? We have a very basic idea of how autonomous vehicles work, and we're developing that. We're going to see autonomous vehicles arise first in very constrained situations. So they're going to operate primarily in geofenced areas. They're going to operate primarily where there are very careful maps and controlled situations. But ultimately, we have to move towards the point of working in more and more general environments. And so you're going to see a tremendous amount of testing go into making that happen. That's going to be crucial towards building that trust. And so ultimately, what we're going to do is look for cases in test situations. We have, for example, a number of test tracks around Michigan. We have one at Kettering. We have one at University of Michigan called M-City. We have a national proving ground in Willow Run called the American Center for Mobility. And so each of those different levels of testing tracks will be used in different levels of scenarios. At Michigan State University, we have a test area that we call Spartan Mobility Village. It's formerly a university residence area, and we've repurposed that. It has two large loops. It's about 330 acres, so it's a pretty large size. We've repurposed that into a testing area for vehicles where we'll do controlled testing. It will have not have public access, so we'll be able to control who has access to that environment, and we'll use that to develop ideas of when we have to be concerned that the vehicle's perception apparatus isn't always working. And so in Michigan, we do have to look at that in 4 seasons. We have to look at that in conditions where the lanes are obscured by snow, by leaves, by sand, by rain, and so forth. So these are all important considerations in terms of maintaining safety. So I would say that the key thing to pay attention to research at MSU on mobility is that we're really looking at it from an ecosystem perspective. So I mentioned Canvas, which is the vehicle component. We also have a smart infrastructure component, which is designed to give additional information to autonomous vehicles. And then we also have what we call socio-mobility, and that's a group of folks from other areas, non-technology areas, who are looking at, for example, how people interact with vehicles, the sociology of it, the legal aspects, the policy aspects. How do you communicate, for example, new features in a vehicle that people may not be familiar with to an audience so that they can quickly be able to use it without having to read manuals. Nobody reads manuals anymore. So those are all important factors in how you get the technology used, taken advantage of, help people to understand it, and understand how it works.